I'm now joined by one of my former teammates and one of my favorite people of all time. That's the new defensive line coach here. I guess I can't say new anymore because you're 8 games in. But Mike Elston, thanks for joining me. And how's it been now that you're 8 games in?
It's been fantastic. Thanks for having me. It's exciting. My family's enjoying their time back in Ann Arbor, and no better way to start the year than 8-0.
Yeah. Well, so what's it been like for you being back in Ann Arbor? I mean, it's all of our same places are still here for the most part. Some of them we can't go to anymore.
Right. Yeah.
Because we're just too old and gray.
That's right.
But what's it been like, having a lot of so many familiar surroundings for you?
It's been great. Last night, we broke meetings around 8 o'clock, and I actually, for the second time since I've been back, I ordered a chapati from Pizza Bob's, and one of the coworkers down the hall from me, he heard me ordering. He was like, "What the heck is that?" And I'm like, "Well, you got to try it to find out what it is, because it's just so unique." But it's been great. All the same, I'm a foodie, and my family, we're all foodies, so it's great to be back in Ann Arbor where there's a great amount of food.
What's the chapati order? Is there mine's no tomatoes, and you got to add sausage, ham?
Yep, I add the sausage and the ham, leave off the mushrooms, and I don't like the green peppers, so I add tomatoes, and I love the red peppers.
See, tomatoes make me gag. So 8 games in, obviously a large part of that has been able to stop the run, put pressure on quarterbacks. Your group is front and center in that. What have you, just a quick evaluation of how your unit has played?
Yeah, I love the guys, myself and Coach Roney. We're always working to make them better and grow. And, we've been very good at stopping the run and putting pressure on the quarterback. We have left production out there in several games with some missed sacks and things like that where the production could be much better. Once you start putting pressure on the quarterback, then you start getting 7-man protections and ball getting out quick. And like we saw in the last game, Michigan State wasn't going to let us, tee off on their quarterback. So, Mike Morris is getting chipped every single time he's out there now by a running back or a tight end. So, you're gaining respect from, offenses when you start to put pressure on the quarterback. But it's been great. The guys are awesome. They learn well, and we're having a lot of fun doing it. And we've got a lot more things to work on and get better at, and so we're working along.
Well, let's take Mike for just a second. He's joined me a couple of times, whether it's the podcast or the show, and there couldn't be a guy that I think has taken the path that we are so familiar with, where you come in, you're red-shirted, you learn behind some individuals, and all of a sudden when it's your time, that light bulb's got to go on and you're expected to produce. I know that you weren't here his first couple of years, but what have you seen from Mike throughout, spring ball to now?
Yeah, Mike is just a very driven young man. He knows what he wants to accomplish in this game, and he's putting the work in. He knows that by getting after the quarterback, that's gonna be something that can give him longevity in this game. But also, Mike is very good on first and second down at defending the run. He's very violent with block destruction and gets off blocks and makes plays. So Mike's made he's just got a great craft for what he's trying to work through, and he's doing a great job.
And you mentioned he's getting those chips. He's getting that attention. And at the end of the first half against Michigan State, I know that they were trying to go hurry up. They're trying to go hustle. And I don't know if it was that Michigan State wasn't set or the situation, but Mike seems to be very good at diagnosing, being able to take advantage of, hey, I'm one-on-one. This is my time to win, and he got a big sack at that moment. Yeah,
that was a critical point in the game to end a 2-minute drive. So, Mike does a really good job of anticipating the snap count, and he beats the tackles off the ball quite a bit. And then so if you don't have a help with the chipper, then, he's already by you. So, it was a big play in the game.
You guys got an addition halfway through training camp, Yabioki. Where have you seen him develop, and how has he been introduced and now a large part of your game plan? Yeah,
the guys have welcomed him, with open arms, and he's learning really well. He's had a lot to learn from getting here in the middle of August. So we had to slowly integrate him into what we were doing. He gives us, incredible speed and explosion on the field. You know, he's a twitched up athlete that's very powerful, and you see that in his pass rush. So he's been a great addition. We have it's a very deep room, as you know, the names we could just rattle off, but you know, Yabi's been great, and you know, he's playing a lot of football for us and playing really well.
Have you ever had a situation where you've gotten a guy that late and had to get him ready to go that quickly?
No.
I mean,
no, the transfer portal is a new wave of, you know, guys immediately being eligible to play, which is great. You know, I think that for them to find a home and play a lot of football is very important. And, you know, but to answer your question, no, I haven't.
Yeah, it's got to be unique in so many different dynamics, because you've had guys that have been putting in the work. But as you and I both know, if you're the best guy in a situation, you're going to go in there and play. How have you handled having him come in at this late time along with everybody else that's been here, and now all of a sudden there's another person taking reps? Yeah,
it's delicate. Obviously, you know, guys been here all summer and put in the work, and but they see it too. You know, when he goes on the field and they see the production, and you know, whether he had in the first 3 or 4 games, you know, 30 snaps, but had production that was higher than other guys that had the same amount of snaps, if not more, then you know, you just got to make a decision as the coach to, you know, put the guy that gives you the best chance to win the game out there.
Another guy who's going to join us a little bit later in the show, Chris Jenkins. We've seen him grow throughout his time here at Michigan, and just like Mike and so many other guys up front, really other than Mazi, I know you use him at a couple of different spots, but it seems like these guys can play all 4 spots. How valuable is it, and how have you seen Chris be productive for you?
Yeah, Chris is very valuable. He can play several positions, as you mentioned. You know, he's really, really good with his hands and block destruction. I mean, he had a heck of a game against Michigan State, almost unblockable. You know, areas that we can really continue to work on is pass rush for him, you know, because he's a very explosive young man. He can get better on the edges and become a really good pass rusher. But we use him at end on base defense. We use him at a 3 technique, a 4-eye, a 2-eye. I mean, we move him all over the place, and he does a lot of things for us. And, you know, he's very intelligent, and obviously he's a really good football player.
What type of advantage is that for you as a coach, knowing that you've got a handful of guys that you can throw out there, and you don't always have to throw them out at the same spot?
Yeah, the versatility of all the guys. I mean, if I rattle them all off, like what Mazi can do and Chris, when those 2 guys are out there, they're interchangeable in the different positions. So when teams go tempo, you know, they can just wave at each other and line up in each other's spot. And then you throw Mason Graham and Rayshon Benny out there, and they can do the same thing. Both of them can interchange in with either Mazi with them or with Chris with them. And then you've got you know, Cam Good and a young man by the name of Kenneth Grant. Like, those guys, they've learned all the positions. There's no limitation of what they can do in terms of a position, so that gives them an opportunity to go out there and play when we need them.
We saw Kenneth Grant a little bit at the beginning of the year when we're playing against teams where, you know, hey, we've got the decided advantage, especially getting into the second half. He was able to get some reps in the 4th quarter of that Michigan State game, and I don't know if he was in there before or not. I didn't take notice, but I know he was in there then. How valuable is it not just to get him reps against Hawaii or Colorado State, but in a matchup against the Big Ten athletes like that game against Michigan State?
Yeah, that was the critical part that we wanted to accomplish, to get him out there. To get as many of those young guys out there so they know what it's like to be, you know, in that game, you know, and hopefully we get a chance to play him more as we go through the rest of this schedule, and we have to get him out there because he's so doggone talented.
Well, I want to talk more about some of those young guys as well as some of the other guys up front, and where maybe there are some areas of improvement when we come back. This is Inside Michigan Football, brought to you from Learfield. Welcome back to Inside Michigan Football. Again, joined by Michigan's defensive line coach, Mike Elston. And, you know, we were talking a little bit about Kenneth Grant, and I want to talk more about Mason Graham, Rayshon Benny, who's in his 2nd year. But how, as a coach, how do you determine when a guy is ready to go in there like Kenneth Grant and get a few reps at the end of the game? And then when do you determine when they're ready to go in there in more critical moments?
Yeah, well, the benefit we had with a young man like Mason was that he came mid-year, and we had 15 spring practices with him, and he was going against the offensive line, and we have a very good offensive line. So when he was able to hold his own and do all the things that we were asking him to do inside of our defensive package, and he just built confidence in the staff, and we knew that he could go out there and play winning football. And then a young man like Kenneth, who got here in fall camp, he had an incredible summer where he trained really, really well, and the strength staff had a lot of great things that they saw from him. And then he went out there and put the pads on, and he was holding his own because he's such a big young man and strong and powerful and athletic. So, he's not as technically sound right now as Mason is, so he's got some things that he needs to work on, and he knows that. And but he's going to be very, very, very good down the road.
I want to say, or I want to ask, are you surprised, but that's probably the wrong term to use. Is it unexpected that a guy like Mason Graham or Kenneth Grant would come in as freshmen and be as productive as they've been?
Yeah, you don't see that often. I get asked that question all the time. Where do these guys rank with guys that you've had in the past that have come in and contributed as freshmen? And both of them are up there with the best that I've had, and I've had some really good young players in the past. So, I'm proud of them, and they got a lot of work ahead of them, but they're fun, and it's very important to them. They love football, and that's the best part of it.
You and I have both gone through the recruiting world. Now you're going through it as a coach, and we've sat there at times when we get coaches from all over the place come in, and they say, hey, yeah, you're going to come in and start as a freshman. And the reality. You don't want to make promises that aren't true. How do you handle that when you're recruiting a kid that you think might have that opportunity, but you also know your roster, especially now, it's becoming deeper and deeper?
Yeah, it's silly to sit there and tell a high school senior that he's going to start, and really, you can poke holes in that as a fellow recruiter if someone tells them that, because if that's the case, then they're probably not very good at, at that position, just because, a freshman coming in and starting and guaranteeing them is, it's just not the right selling point in my opinion. But, I think that you can watch film with them and point to things that they do really well, and then show them what your guys are doing, and show that there's carryover, and then there's the potential of coming in and contributing early. I think that's about the furthest that you'd want to take it.
Braden McGregor has been another guy who's been here, and we've seen him be explosive off the edge. He's a local kid here from the state of Michigan. What have you seen from him throughout your time now at Michigan?
Yeah, Braden has actually had two of the best weeks of practice since I've been here, these last 2 weeks. And so he played more this weekend, and obviously had a very big play in the game. He got a big sack, and I see him playing more down the road, and if he continues to practice at the level that he's practicing. And I love Braden. Braden's a great young man, and when he works hard at his craft, he's super talented and very good.
For a number of years on both sides of the ball, Michigan's offensive line was about one injury away from being depleted in talent, and their depth now is as good as it's ever been. Defensive line-wise, kind of the same thing. Where is your depth right now? If you were to, suffer an injury, do you feel confident that, hey, next man up is going to go in there and still be productive?
Yeah, we have really good depth. We rotate guys in. I think the reason for rotating guys in are to get them ready for opportunities that arise, for the next man in situation. I don't believe that there would be a lot of drop off if we had to play other guys a significant role. So, yeah, I think the depth is really good.
How about some of the other young guys, like a TJ Guy, Derek Moore? We've seen him a little bit. The one thing I like about Derek Moore is, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but for some reason, it seems like he's a really good first step. And then he's got that annoying characteristic of, as an offensive tackle, of sticking that long arm into your chest, and you cannot get a hand on him, or you got to try and clean it off. What is it that Derek Moore right now that stands out to you?
Yeah, Derek is a very physical player, and he works his tail off. Derek might be the hardest worker in the entire front. I mean, he is nonstop in your face, and he brings it every day, and that's where
it's annoying as an offensive
on offensive linemen when you have that long arm or that pressure on you consistently, and he keeps the pressure on, which is great. And he's only getting better as the season goes on, and he's starting to play more the last 3 or 4 games, and he's got a very bright future. Another young guy, Rayshawn Benny, doing a really good job. He playing more and more as the season's going on, and when I got here first in the spring, was probably one of the furthest guys away from helping us playing winning football, and then for 15 practices and then fall camp, I mean the progress that he's made is just astounding. So very proud of him, and his future's extremely bright. You already talked about Derek. Was there another young guy?
TJ.
Oh, TJ, yeah, TJ. TJ's a really good pass rusher. It's just he's stuck behind a roster full of other really good pass rushers.
Yeah.
And he's a young guy, kind of biding his time and waiting his turn, and we'll see.
There's 2 other starters that I do want to talk about, and I can't believe I've gone this far into the interview without talking specifically about Mazi Smith.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think he goes a little bit unnoticed because you just expect certain things out of him now. And what I've seen from him is his ability to take on double teams, allow linebackers to make plays. You guys use him a lot to, as the picker, he picks off a guard and a tackle, and then all of a sudden here comes Mike Morris around on a loop. But he really, over the last 4 or 5 weeks, his separation extension, even on double teams, and then to be able to shed blocks and make tackles on his own, seems to be at an improved but high level. Your thoughts right now on where Mazi Smith is? Yeah,
Mazi's made a lot of great strides in many areas. This from last year to this year, movement being one of them. Being able to move laterally quickly. He's really improved that part of his game. And then, as you're talking about, one of the main points of emphasis from last season to this season was lockout, separation, disengage, and being able to disengage blockers and make plays. And he's made a ton of plays already, just up the middle, by just violently getting off blocks. He does a great job on double teams and power scoops and the combination blocks that everybody's going to give you when you have a 330-pounder inside.
He's a big dude.
And he just, he's violent. He plays aggressive, and he's working on his pass rush. He's getting pressure on the quarterback. He had half a sack in the last game. So, he's making a ton of progress, and, he's been great.
Of any coach, in terms of skill sets that you've got to coach, I think the D-line coach, especially with the skill set that you guys have up front, is probably the most varied, right? Offensive lineman, hey, center, yeah, there's a little variance, but it's always, guard, tackles. You could sometimes be interchangeable, same techniques. But you've got guys that are playing inside like Mazi. You got guys that are playing outside and can play around like, we talked about Derek Moore, Mike Morris, Chris Jenkins. But now you throw in a guy like Jalen Harrell. Mm-hmm. Completely different athlete than everybody else that we talked about.
Yeah.
How unique is it for you to be coaching pass rush moves for him and, setting an edge for him than it is for a guy like Mazi?
Yeah, well, Jalen is like the Swiss Army knife. He can do everything. He plays Sam in our base defense, and then he moves to the edge in our nickel. And he's probably one of the smartest young men that I've ever, been around. So, he does a great job with, just being able to, even though he's not the biggest guy in the room, being able to set edges because he has really good length and he plays with great technique, but also, he's very disruptive in the pass game. So, I think that's developed over the last couple years, and he's done a great job.
Now that you're 8 games in, we just had 2 weeks of bye week. I know there's another set of film that you get a chance to take a look at, but where do you want to see your guys improve from that Michigan State game to now Rutgers? Yeah,
I think the number one thing is just consistency and execution, execution of the techniques that we're teaching, consistency of execution in the game plan. When tempo hits or, the crowd gets loud at home because they're shouting at the opposing offense, just being able to execute at a much higher level is something that we're going to make a point of emphasis as we move forward for the next 4 weeks. but then also, taking advantage of the opportunities we have with getting the ball out. I think that we need to create more turnovers, especially on the quarterback. When we get to the quarterback, being able to finish on him, finish on a throwing arm, making sure we get the ball out, but also getting him on the ground and not missing sacks.
I just thought of this one too when you talked about finishing on the quarterback. We've seen at the NFL level, it's really hard, especially in those bang plays when the quarterback gets the ball out. Now you got to hit on the quarterback, which is all right, but sometimes it feels like if you fall on the quarterback, it's a penalty. If you hit him in the wrong spot, how much do you guys have to coach up how to hit a quarterback?
Yeah, it's part of what we talk about on a weekly basis. Coach Harbaugh puts together the TTG, the Teach the Games, on Fridays, and there's always a point of emphasis on striking the quarterback in the hit zone, the target zone that you want to be in, and along with a myriad of other different topics that are covered on a Friday. But we preach on it, we talk about it, and knock on wood, we've been very fortunate. Sometimes it's you're playing aggressive in the speed of the game, and the split-second decision is, it catches up to you, and whatever, you duck your head and you hit him somewhere. But we've been really good and very conscious of how we're hitting the quarterback.
Well, Mike, as always, it's great to talk to you. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you, John. Appreciate it.
We'll be back with Chris Jenkins in just a few moments. This is Inside Michigan Football from Learfield.